So we are continuing a series that I am calling Live Out Loud. We started last Sunday, and we started with a commitment to saying yes to New Year's resolutions where we are adding to our life. And I was delighted that Jimmer, who was our soloist last week, said from now on when he gets a text message that has the letters LOL in it, he's not going to think of laugh out loud, he's going to think of live out loud. Live out. That's a great little reminder, isn't it? A little reminder, live out loud. So today I want to talk to you about this idea of turning up our light. Turning up our light. Say that with me. Turning up our light. Turning up our light. You know, I think that like we left last Sunday and I think we felt energy and enthusiasm for saying yes to life and just living with greater motivation and inspiration and enthusiasm. And then Monday happens. Your laughter tells me we're on a similar kind of page, right? Monday happens. We're sitting here in the energy of this space or tuning in to the energy of these teachings and this community, and it feeds our spirit, feeds our soul. We feel optimistic. We feel joyful, right? And then the reality is we have life outside of this wonderful spiritual cocoon, so to speak. And that life outside doesn't always look like or feel like what it feels like and looks like in here. And so we might question and we think, yes, you know, I've been told I have this beautiful light. I'm told that I am made in the image and after the likeness of the divine. But why does it sometimes feel difficult to be able to let that light shine? Or why do I maybe wonder if it's really true about me? Sometimes it's easier for us, I think, to believe these things for somebody else than it is for us to really own them for ourselves. And it's equally important that we do both, that we are able to see the light, the godliness, the divinity in another and in ourselves. It's not an either or, it's a both and. This work of shining our light brightly is really 80% mental and internal and only 20% external. It's really, as we so often say in metaphysics, it is truly an inside job. Today I'm going to be weaving in and out of 5 steps that I want to share with you for helping to be able to more easily turn up our light. I'm going to be using a bit of a metaphor of the lighthouse. How many of you have been out to Cabrillo Monument and see the beautiful, isn't it beautiful? And I know collecting lighthouses is something a lot of people enjoy doing. And when we think of a lighthouse, we think of a beautiful structure that is meant to do what? Guide, right? It's meant to guide. It's meant to use light to bring ships safely into harbor. In the structure of a lighthouse, the lighthouse doesn't invent the light. It is a structure that reflects the light. And the inner work that we do in our spiritual practice is like building the structure for our own light to shine more brightly. Does that make sense? Working from the inside out, working at the level of the mind to create the structure of consciousness so that it is easier for the light that is the true light within us to shine more steadily and more brightly. Last week I shared with you a concept from Ernest Holmes, and I want to bring that back in and bring back in one from Charles Fillmore. Ernest was the founder of A Science of Mind, Charles Fillmore, the founder of the Unity movement. And they both taught and talked about this idea of the creative law, that the creative law is the foundation. It's kind of like our starting point. Charles said the creative law makes man responsible for the bringing forth of the divine perfection. God finished his work in the ideal, and we are making it manifest. What Charles is saying there is the divine ideal, the ideal of the perfection of humanity. That is an idea in the mind of God, but it is up to us using principle, using spiritual practice to manifest that, to bring that into physical form. Ernest Holmes put it this way: science of mind is a way of thinking. I like just that statement right there. Science of mind is a way of thinking which gives you an awareness of spiritual principles on which you may rely. It shows you how to use the law of mind, how to think effectively, how to use the law of mind, how to think effectively for what you need so that your life becomes wholesome, fine, successful, and good. Does that sound nice? Wholesome, fine, successful, and good. You have a perfect right to use the creativity of your mind to provide all that is necessary for a fuller, richer experience in living. So it's this idea of the creative law, the creative foundation. Again, pointing back to 80% of this work of our light shining more brightly is inner, and only 10% of it really is physical. So there's 5 things that I want to share with you that kind of help us to remember to be able to do this work better, to clear away the debris, if you will, or the fears or the misbeliefs that cloud that light, The first is the practice of becoming aware of, mindful of, the bigger reality. The practice of becoming aware of and mindful of the bigger reality. If you want your light to shine brightly, you have to know how great the power is to begin with. You have to know that no matter how much you have already manifested and expressed, it is still a small portion of the greatness and the brightness that's already true of you. That's already true of you. No matter what is going on in your life right now, you are up to the task of that. And there is power and potential and brightness in you yet to be expressed. That's not to diminish in any way the good that you've already done. It's just to remind you, to remind me that there is that much more that we are capable of. You are not, as Rumi said, you are not just the drop in the ocean, you are the mighty ocean in the drop. That's a powerful reminder, is it not? We are not just a drop in the ocean. Do you ever feel like you're just the drop in the ocean? Like this is one tiny little speck on this great big planet in this immense solar system, right? It's easy to feel insignificant. And if we're just measuring by size, we have to say, yeah, that's true. But it's not the totality of what we are as spiritual beings. We are so much more than that. Infinite potential. And in order to really shine our light more brightly, we need to remember that truth about ourselves, to become or to embrace that bigger reality. It's a little bit like the difference between a solar panel and a battery. We're not a battery that just stores up the energy. We are more like a solar panel that absorbs it and reflects it back, and it gives it back out. It's like in a lighthouse. There is the use of mirrors, right, to amplify the light. That's our job, to amplify our own light and each other's light. We're not just a drop in the ocean, we're the entire ocean in the drop. What would it be like if every morning when we wake up and we look in the mirror, we don't notice what is wrong or missing or how the ages and the years are maybe showing up differently in us. Instead, we looked and we said, I'm a magnificent, radiant expression of the divine. Why are you so quiet? For some of us, it would be a stretch to do that, right? Yes, but could you believe that and hold that to be true for the person sitting next to you? I bet you could. What is it about us that we do that, huh? What are we afraid? Well, Marianne Williamson, I don't have that quote committed to memory, but she talks about how we are afraid of our own greatness, right? And maybe that's because we don't want to be egotistical. We don't want to come across it with this braggadocious kind of way of being. That's not pleasant, and it's not necessary. And yet, there is so much greatness in each and every one of us. And in order to really live a fuller life, to live out loud, we do have to come to terms with that as the truth of our being, and then do the work, the inner work, to remove anything that is keeping us from expressing it. Does that make sense? Okay, so connecting with, acknowledging, knowing something of the bigger reality of what we really are. The second is trusting in the divine law, trusting in principle. There are certain physical laws that we trust pretty well. We know if we step off a high area, we're going to do what? We're going to fall. We know that spring always follows winter. We know that there are certain predictable things, right? Right? We know that. We know that if we are planting tomato seeds and we do everything to help that tomato seed grow, no matter how many affirmations we say, we're not going to produce a harvest of apples. Why? Because we planted what? A tomato seed. So there are certain laws that are easy for us to hold and live by, right? It takes a bit of maturity and practice, I think, to understand spiritual principle and law and to trust in it. And part of the challenge I think we sometimes have in trusting in spiritual law is we look with a much shorter time frame and lens. If we just take the law of sowing and reaping, that what we plant, we are going to harvest. What happens for us is if we don't see the harvest of what we planted immediately or quickly or in our time frame or what we think is reasonable, we begin to what? Doubt the principle. Or we look and we say, okay, I've planted all this good in my life. I have done all this forgiveness work, all this loving kindness work toward this person. And they don't respond. And we think what? Well, the practice doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm putting this out, but it's not coming back. Where we also fall short or make mistakes is that our time frame does not always line up with God or the universe's time frame. Have you noticed that? I have too. The other thing is we tend to look in just one direction. We think if I'm planting my good here, then I should get my good back here. We need to have more of a 360 viewing point in trusting that when we consistently put out good, when we consistently give, when we consistently serve, when we consistently rise to the higher, it is going to come back to us. But we have to keep our eyes and ears open that it may come back in a different time period or from a different direction than what we originally thought. Does that make sense? It's an important part. And to be able to turn our light up more brightly, I think we've got to be more trusting of this divine law, of this principle. The third is the idea of being bold and precise in the words that we speak, in what it is that we want to bring forth in our life. If we're going to turn our light up, we need to be specific what that means for us, to be very mindful of the words that we use, to understand the impact of the words that we use. In the very, very early days of metaphysics and New Thought, there was even more emphasis, I think, than there is today in the importance of the power of the spoken word, that we are literally bringing to life our experiences through the spoken word, to be bold in speaking for what we want. And when I say bold in speaking for what we want, I'm not talking about being bold and aggressive to another person. I'm talking about being bold and clear and decisive to the universe. If you say things to the universe in your mind and thinking and words, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that, we're given very fuzzy directions, are we not? How many of you have started to use AI in any way? Okay. If you use AI, you learn pretty quickly that you want to be specific in what you're asking, right? That you want to be clear. And if you're not clear, it can't even begin to give you helpful information. And sometimes it doesn't give helpful information anyway. But what's that old computer saying? Garbage in, garbage out, right? Our words, the literal, physical, spoken word, as well as the words that run in our mind, are powerful creators. Powerful creators. Emma Curtis Hopkins was an old-time unity metaphysician, and she has books and had books and teachings on affirmations, and she was a very strong proponent of being bold and clear and precise in the words that you use and the message you're putting out to the universe. And she would say things like, when things aren't working the way that you want them to, or something has happened that you don't like, you need to be bold and precise in what you are claiming and what you are asking. She says, we demand to see a blessing. Here's a tiny little lady. We demand to see a blessing. She'd say, we don't beg, we proclaim. And it's not demanding of a person, it's demanding of the infinite energy of the universe itself. We don't beg, we proclaim. This too is good. This too is God. This too is good. This too is God. Say that with me. This too is good. This too is God. This too is good. This too is God. I have a little bit of growing to do with that macadamia nut. This too is good. This too is God. It's not to deny the hurt or the pain or the clumsiness or the inconvenience. It's not to deny the reality of whatever's going on in your finances or your body or your relationships, but it's to put that in perspective and to say, that may be true, that may be factual, but I'm holding to the truth that this too is good. This too is God. There is good in this. There is God in this. Either we believe in the fundamental principle of unity, and I believe Science of Mind holds a very similar one, maybe different words, that there is one presence and one power in the universe, God the good, omnipotent, everywhere equally present. That means in every person, in every circumstance, in every situation. Everywhere means everywhere. It means even in the midst of that macadamia nut. If you didn't hear the first part of the story, that must make no sense at all. But everywhere present, right? Everywhere present. Our spoken word is a little bit like the rudder of a ship. Right? Like the rudder of a ship. A captain doesn't ask the ocean permission to set the rudder. The captain sets the rudder. The captain decides where he or she wants to go and sets the rudder so it will take advantage of going in that direction. Our words are very much like that. And our words are a key part of being able to let our light shine more brightly. The fourth has to do with imagination. Imagination has to do with focus And specifically, like Emma Curtis Hopkins, focusing on the good, even in the darkest of nights, even in the darkest night of the soul, even in the most scary situation in our life, even in the most inhumane situations in the world, there is still, at the very least, a kernel of goodness to be found in that. And that's what we have to hold on to. That's what we have to bring forth. We don't fight and curse the darkness. We bring forth the light. We bring forth the light. How many of you remember or recognize the name Rhonda Burns? Or The Secret? Do you recognize the name The Secret? Okay, some of you do. She was asked, how do you help people focus on the good? How do you help people stop thinking the negative stuff? I'm going to read to you her answer, because I think it's a pretty good one. She says, how do you stop negative thoughts? You plant good thoughts. When you try to stop negative thoughts, you are focusing on what you don't want, negative thoughts, and you will attract an abundance of them. They can never disappear if you're focused on them. The stop part is irrelevant. The negative thoughts are your focus. It doesn't matter if you're trying to stop negative thoughts or control them or push them away. The result is the same. Your focus is on negative thoughts, and by the law of attraction, you are inviting more of them to you. The truth is always simple, and it's always easy. To stop negative thoughts, just plant good thoughts. Deliberately. She doesn't say necessarily that it's easy. And it does take practice. Stop for just a moment and ask yourself, how many years have you been thinking and using your mind the way you are right now? You're very quiet. We've all been doing it for a long time, right? We've all been doing it for a long time. So it's the supplanting of a different thought over repetition. She says you plant good thoughts by making it a daily practice to appreciate all the things in your day. Appreciate your health, your car, your home, your family, your job, your friends, your surroundings, your meals, your pets, and the magnificent beauty of the day. Compliment, praise, and give thanks to all things. Every time you say thank you, it is a good thought. Meister Eckhart, the 13th century German mystic, said, if thank you is the only prayer you ever pray, you will have prayed well. And not an empty thank you. Not an empty thank you. But a thank you that is felt, a thank you that is embodied. Every time you say thank you, it is a good thought. As you plant more and more good thoughts, the negative thoughts will be wiped out. Why? Because your focus is on good thoughts, and what you focus on, you attract. Don't give any attention to negative thoughts. Don't worry about them. If any come, make light of them, shrug them off, and let them be your reminder to deliberately think more good thoughts now. There are two words in that last sentence that we could spend a considerable amount of our spiritual practice time practicing. And those two words are think deliberately. Think deliberately. I remember a time not too long ago when I was struck by that thought, to practice thinking deliberately. What came up for me was how often my thinking is on automatic pilot, and how the idea of thinking deliberately really is a practice. It's quite a mental practice, and it's a very beneficial practice. I don't know that it is possible to think deliberately all of one's waking hours, but I do know it is possible to think deliberately more consistently than probably all of us are doing right now. And that is how we begin to reconstruct the mental framework, reconstruct our consciousness. It really is through the practice of deliberate thinking. It is one of the reasons why meditation is an important practice. Kind of on the flip side of it, meditation isn't always about thinking. In fact, a lot of times it is about quieting the mind. But both are about taming the mind or training the mind. And therein lies the secret, the training of the mind, so that when we need to be quiet and still up here, that we have practiced enough that we can move into that space of a quiet and still trained mind, not a monkey mind. Why is that beneficial? It's beneficial because it makes it much easier for us to be able to discern that inner guidance and wisdom that is always present to us. It is really hard for that inner guidance and wisdom to pop through a crazy monkey mind. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So the training of the mind in meditation that helps us to be able to train and tame the craziness of thought. And then when we need to think, and we do need to think, and we need to think critically. And when I say critically, I don't mean in a critical, judgmental way. I mean in a very deliberate, thoughtful way. And to do so, to use the word again, deliberately. Does this make sense? It's a practice. It's a practice. Might be something you might want to put on one of those cards. And the very last is, here is where it becomes the physical. Remember I said turning up our light, being more of the living out loud, being more of the expression of God in our day-to-day lives, is 80% mental, 80% in consciousness, and 20% physical. And the physical is, as I like to say, get up off your affirmation. It's doing the next right thing. And I don't know what the next right thing is for you. If you have a health issue going on, there is probably the next right thing for you to do that would help you move into greater health and vibrancy. If you have a financial situation going on, there is a next right step to help you change and improve your financial situation. Same thing if you're looking for work. There is a next right step. Whatever that next right step is, it's important that we take it. We can't just be visualizing it or affirming it or praying for it. There comes a point where we have to get up off our affirmations and go do something. Will it always be the right thing or the best thing? Probably not. Think about how a child learns to walk. Do you remember watching a child? Most people have seen children learn to walk. Is it a perfect experience for the child? No. They learn to walk by wobbling and kind of falling a little bit, and eventually they figure out how to do it. It's kind of like that for us as well. Very much like that for us as well. So that next right step, we take it, and it may be the perfect next right step, and all sorts of doors open up for us. Or it may be a little bit of a detour, but at least we're making some movement forward. At least we're saying to the universe, I'm paying attention. I'm giving this my best shot. I'm thinking this is my guidance, and I'm thinking this is what my next right step is, so I'm going to take it, and I'm going to trust that if I need to make a little bit of a detour, I'm going to be shown that as well. I want to close with a piece that might surprise you where it came from. So I'm not going to tell you until the end where it came from, but it kind of serves as a bit of a summary to what I've been trying to talk about this morning, of letting our light shine more brightly and the things that we can do mentally to help facilitate that, and what we need to do physically to help bring that about. So I'm reading, and I quote, "I've been told that if you change your mind, you change the world, or at least the way you experience it. Let's take a moment to examine that. The presumption is, if you thought the world was a hostile, ugly place filled with awful people doing awful things, that is what you'd see. Your mind would naturally seek out confirmation for its preconceived ideas. For example, if you're intent on buying a red car as you go about your day, you'll see lots of red cars. If, however, you are able to sincerely change your mind and see that we are all God in drag, I love that, God in drag, that we are the conscious aspects of a perfect universe, the conscious aspects of a perfect universe, which had to create us so we could bear witness and stand in awe before its loving magnificence, then that is the soul-shaking reality you'd be greeted with each and every moment of each and every day. In other words, it's entirely our choice as to what kind of world we live in. With a simple decision, we can suffer in the darkness or play in the light. We can be angry, frightened, and enslaved, or loving, joyous, and free. I know, it's a toughie. Any of you know where that came from? It was on a vanity card at the end of an episode of The Big Bang Theory. Now imagine for a moment, that sounds like us, doesn't it? Getting out more mainstream? I hope they play that episode again and again and again and again. So in wrapping it up, you are an incredibly bright light. I acknowledge all that you have done in your life, the things you have learned, the mistakes you have made, the overcomings you've had, to be shining at the level that you're shining at now. And I also know that there is an even greater capacity in you for that light to shine more brightly. And as it does, not only do you benefit, not only do you feel better, not only does your life work better, but you become an inspiration to those around you who maybe have not yet learned the truth of who and what they are. So when Jesus talked about us being the light of the world, to let our light shine, to not hide it under a bushel, he was speaking a timeless truth. It's up to you and me to do the best we can to live that truth. Namaste.